Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Oliver Morgan stood in the top floor office of his security consulting firm on Chicago's North Side, his eyes retracting from the busy street outside his window to land on the framed badge and certificate of merit on the wall. 20 years as a criminal police officer not only gave him a keen intuition, but also gave him the habit of paying attention to details. It was this habit that had made it increasingly difficult for him to ignore the subtle changes in his life over the past 3 months. The coffee on the desk was cold, the fourth cup of the day. Oliver pulls up his work schedule for the past 3 months and carefully compares his wife Emma's social activity logs. As a professional security consultant, it is his habit to record key information about his life. The data showed that Emma's frequency of attending business meetings at the yoga studio was on the rise and the hours were becoming more irregular. Especially on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m., Emma would go out for emergency meetings. This time of day coincides with the end of classes at the yoga studio, and Emma used to say that she didn't like to have meetings in the evening as it would affect her teaching form the next day. His thoughts were interrupted by the vibration of his cell phone. Caller ID shows it's his old partner, Benjamin Lucas, now a private investigator. The tacit understanding from 15 years of working together in the police force allowed Oliver to immediately notice something unusual in the other man's tone. "Oliver, we got some results on those real estate info you asked me to look into." Benjamin's voice held a hint of unusual gravity. "William Anderson, Emma's yoga studio partner, has a bigger problem than we thought. Through 5 different shell companies, he has acquired 5 properties in suburban Chicago in the past 4 months. Each of these deals exceeded the market appraisal by at least 30%, and, furthermore, the locations fit perfectly with the new studio site mentioned by Emma." Oliver's fingers tapped lightly on the solid wood desk, a habitual motion when he was thinking. 20 years of experience as a criminal police officer had taught him that this pattern of deliberately evasive transactions often signaled deeper problems. He thought back to the community barbecue party in his backyard last Sunday and the strange gleam in Emma's eyes when William appeared at the back door. At the time, their whispers in the corner had been categorized by him simply as an ordinary business discussion. But now it all seemed suspicious. "Ben," Oliver's voice was calm, but his tone carried the seriousness that only comes when he's dealing with a serious case. "Help me continue to follow up on the source of the funds for these properties. I especially need to know if there are offshore accounts involved. In the meantime, keep an eye out for me on William's recent social engagements, especially during non-working hours." Putting the phone down, Oliver turned on the home's smart monitoring system. The system was installed when they moved into their new home 3 years ago, and as a veteran security consultant, he insisted on the most advanced equipment on the market, including motion sensing, thermal imaging, and voice print recognition capabilities. Now, these devices, originally used to protect his family, are helping to reveal a potentially horrifying truth about him. Playback records show that Emma has answered the phone late at night 12 times in the past month, and each time she's walked under the maple tree in her backyard. What's even more striking is that these calls never appeared in her phone records. Oliver vividly remembered that on the night of their proposal 8 years before they were married, Emma had said that she hated talking on the phone outside, especially at night, because it made her feel unsafe. Human habits are hard to change unless there is a compelling reason to do so. His suspicions were reinforced by the erratic behavior of Max, the golden retriever they had. The search and rescue dog, who received specialized training in the police force, has always been known to be docile, but in recent weeks, every time Emma came home she would duck away, sometimes even letting out a low warning growl. Oliver recalled what his narcotics dog trainer had told him when he was in the major crimes unit. Dogs can sense changes in people's moods and unusual behaviors, and their intuition is often more accurate than humans. At dinner time, Emma looked distracted, checking her phone frequently, which had become the norm lately. At the table, her cell phone screen lights up and goes off, and Oliver notices that she deliberately tilts it to avoid his view. "The studio's been busy lately?" Oliver asked in a seemingly casual manner, while observing his wife's micro-expressions. As an ex-criminal, his interrogation skills taught him that people who lied tended to subconsciously avoid eye contact. "Well," Emma answered with a twinkle in her eye and fingers fidgeting unconsciously with her napkin, "William's trying to expand his business, and this is a critical time. Many investors are interested in our new program. She paused as if weighing her words. By the way, I'm going to a private lesson with an important client next Tuesday night, and I might not be back until late. It's Tuesday night again. Oliver made a mental note of this information, while noting the subtle change in Emma's tone when she mentioned William. After the meal, Emma quickly returned to the bedroom and said she had to deal with work emails. This excuse has been used more and more often lately. Alone in his study, Oliver begins to systematize the anomalies he's gathered: late-night phone calls, suspicious real estate transactions, erratic behavior patterns, and William's ambiguous business plans. As an experienced detective, he knows that the truth is often hidden in these seemingly unrelated details. Early the next morning, Oliver went for his customary jog through the neighborhood. As he passed the yoga studio, he was keenly aware of a familiar black Mercedes parked in a back alley. That's William's car, and it's only 6 in the morning, and the studio doesn't open until 9. Even more suspicious was the fact that Emma's white BMW was parked right next to the Mercedes, both cars still with engine residuals. He slowed his pace, and his expert powers of observation allowed him to catch the faint light of the second floor of the studio and the figure swaying behind the curtains. As a criminal police officer, he often told newcomers, the key to solving a case is often hidden in those unintentional details. Now, these scattered details are weaving a disturbing web. When he got home, he received a new message from Benjamin. In addition to real estate transactions, William's shell companies involved significant cash flows. These companies had more than 20 large transactions between offshore accounts in the past 3 months, ranging from $100,000 to $500,000 per transaction. The size of these transactions is totally disproportionate to the normal turnover of a medium-sized yoga studio. Oliver began detailing these findings in his personal notebook. As an experienced criminalist, he knows the importance of records. Every detail, every point in time, can be key evidence in subsequent investigations. But unlike in the past, this time the people he was investigating were those closest to him. His sister Sarah, a senior psychologist who teaches at the University of Chicago, visited that afternoon. "You've been looking tired lately," she pinpointed, "with the kind of focus in your eyes that you only have when you're working a serious case. Is it too much work?" Oliver didn't answer positively, but Sarah had noticed the papers spread out on his desk and the calendar full of markers. "I ran into Emma at the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue last week," she said thoughtfully, "and she said she was talking to some potential investors about the business. But strangely, she was dressed in formal attire and her handbag was a new Chanel, which doesn't look like the kind of outfit you'd wear to teach a yoga class." This seemingly ordinary message caught Oliver's attention. Emma has always had a professional image, but she prefers athleisure brands. The sudden change in dress code, coupled with the ever-increasing number of business meetings, is a disturbing outline of what is to come. In the dead of night, Oliver stood in front of the study window and watched through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Emma made her secret calls under the tree in the backyard. The most important lesson 20 years as a police detective taught him was that the truth is often more complicated than meets the eye. And now he was about to uncover that truth, no matter how painful it might be. Oliver lowered the blind shades and turned toward his personal safe. Enter the password and remove a black encrypted laptop. The equipment was specialized gear he used as a detective in the Major Crimes Unit, and now it came in handy in an unexpected way. At 3 in the morning, he dialed a number he hadn't used in a long time. "Trina, it's me, Oliver." A woman's sober voice came from the other end of the line, as if she had been waiting for this call. "I knew you'd call sooner or later. What happened?" Trina Martinez, an old friend of Oliver's from his stint at the FBI, now runs a private investigation firm. "I'm going to need your expertise," Oliver said briefly, "in connection with some questionable real estate transactions and the flow of money." He didn't mention Emma, but Trina was keenly aware of the anomaly in his tone. "Send me the details and I'll start investigating right away. Remember, emotion is the most dangerous thing in this situation." The next morning, Oliver called a small meeting in the conference room of his security company. In addition to Benjamin and Trina, there is his sister Sarah. As a clinical psychologist, her professional insight will be indispensable. According to preliminary investigations, Trina said as she stood in front of a projection screen displaying a series of complex charts, William Anderson's business empire is much larger than it appears. Over the past 6 months, he has operated through at least 8 shell companies with money flowing across 3 continents. She clicks the remote and switches to the next slide. The most interesting thing is that all of these companies are registered in the city where Emma is opening her new yoga studio. Benjamin added, the studios are also unusually located near upscale residential neighborhoods, but rents are well below market rates. The landlord company traces its roots to a trust registered in the Cayman Islands. Sarah frowned as she studied Emma's recent social media updates. From a psychological perspective, her behavioral patterns changed significantly. The posts used to be about yoga and healthy lifestyles, but now they are more about business meetings and investment discussions. The language style has also become more cautious and ambiguous. Just as they were discussing it, Oliver's cell phone vibrated. It's an alarm for motion sensors installed in your home. Through real-time surveillance footage, they saw an unknown man wandering around the house, pretending to walk his dog. I know him, Benjamin said immediately. The man is well known in the Chicago underground circles and specializes in private work. Oliver's expression became grave. He knew that this was not simply stalking, but some kind of threat assessment. Trina quickly maneuvered on her laptop. Give me 10 minutes, she said. I want to check this man's recent activity log. Sure enough, surveillance footage showed the man appearing near Oliver's office and home several times over the past week. They're testing your daily routine, Benjamin stated the conclusion that everyone had thought of. It's standard procedure for professional killers before a mission. Sarah suddenly interrupted the discussion. Watch this. She pulled up Emma's credit card records. There was a $10,000 cash withdrawal last Friday, the day before the man first showed up. Oliver felt a chill. He remembered that Emma had always talked about preparing funds for the renovation of the yoga studio lately. Could it be that the money? He didn't dare to keep thinking about it. We need more evidence, Trina said firmly. Let me arrange for some equipment. She opened a black suitcase containing the latest surveillance equipment, miniature cameras, voice recorders, and GPS trackers. These are military-grade, wireless signals can't be detected. Over the next week, they set up a complete surveillance network. Sarah analyzes Emma's social activities and mental state. Benjamin tracks down the suspicious man, and Trina delves into William's business empire. There was a quick breakthrough in the investigation. Oliver, you've got to see this, Trina said one evening as she hurried into his office with a stack of papers. William's company was not only involved in real estate transactions, but was also engaged in a massive money laundering operation. These yoga studios are the perfect cover for them to launder black money. Documents show that each studio maintains a steady number of members, but in reality, many of the members are fictitious. Through membership fees, course fees, and equipment sales, large amounts of cash are given a legitimate source in the accounts. Even more disturbing is the fact that Emma's signature appears on multiple suspicious financial documents. There's no way she didn't know, Sarah said softly. These documents require specialized financial knowledge, and Emma has an accounting background. Just then, Benjamin hurried into the office. That assassin has made his move. He just ambushed you in the parking lot of the gym you frequent. Oliver immediately pulled up the gym security footage, and sure enough, he saw the man hiding behind a van, seemingly holding something in his hands. We've got to fight back, Trina said, but outwit them. Let them think the plan worked. Oliver agreed with this suggestion. As a former major crimes detective, he knows that sometimes you have to make your opponents feel like they have the upper hand in order to gather decisive evidence. They've orchestrated a trap. Oliver changed his workout routine, but made sure the security cameras still captured his original workout routes. Sure enough, the next morning, the killer showed up. This time, their cameras not only captured the entirety of the attempted murder, but also recorded him talking to a familiar figure, William Anderson. Interesting, Benjamin said as he watched the video footage. The fact that they're planning to do it so soon shows that they're in a hurry. Sarah adds, psychologically, this eagerness usually means they're hiding a bigger secret. Oliver sits in his office and looks at Emma's picture on the wall. How ironic the once happy smile now seems. But he was a professional detective and knew that emotion had to give way to reason in situations like this. He opens his computer and begins systematically organizing all the evidence. Suspicious money transactions, false membership records, the killer's surveillance videos, and records of Emma and William's secret meetings. What we have now is enough to launch a formal investigation, Trina said. But are you sure you want to take this step? Oliver's response was surprisingly calm. Continue to investigate in depth. I want the whole truth about this hoax, no matter how heartbreaking the outcome. The next move began quietly. At 6 in the morning, Oliver sits in his command center, which was originally a storage room in the basement of his house and has been converted into a fully equipped surveillance room. Displays on each of the 4 walls show live feeds from Emma's yoga studio, William's office, and several key locations. The blue light of the screen reflected on his tired but focused face. The third night in a row he had worked here all night. The preliminary results of the financial audit are in. Trina's voice came over the encrypted comm system, accompanied by the sound of keyboard tapping. And to be honest, it's more serious than we expected. William's business empire is like an elaborate house of cards. He used the membership fees from the yoga studio to conduct multiple money laundering operations, with each fund being transferred through at least 3 layers of shell companies. What's most surprising, she paused as if weighing her words, is that Emma was not only in the know, but was a key executor of the entire plan. Her background in finance makes these maneuvers look seamless. Sarah is in the next room analyzing documents secretly collected from Emma's office. Through the glass wall, Oliver could see the side of her focused face. There are major problems with these contracts, she walked in, clutching a stack of papers. The members' signatures are obviously forged. I had a handwriting expert confirm it. Moreover, less than 20% of these high-value equipment purchases were actually recorded as having been received. Where did the rest of the money go? It's obviously been moved. Benjamin's investigation also led to new findings. He pulled up a high-definition surveillance video that showed the exiting assassin talking to an unexpected character. That killer is out of the action. Apparently, William didn't pay the full amount promised, which annoyed him. But more interestingly, he zoomed in. William has been frequenting the Bronson law firm lately, one of Chicago's top legal teams. Oliver scrutinized the details on the screen. William looks tense, and the creases in his suit jacket show that he's been losing weight rapidly lately, a telltale sign of stress. He knew that meant the other side was preparing a legal counterattack. Sure enough, the next morning, he was served with a court summons in which Emma accused him of stalking and harassment and asked the court for a restraining order. Typical diversionary tactics, Trina commented calmly, while quickly noting something on her computer. They want to limit your range of motion so you can't continue your investigation. It was a smart move, using your marriage as a cover. But Oliver was prepared. Over the past few weeks, he's not only gathered tons of evidence, he's built an entire chain of evidence documenting every secret meeting between Emma and William, every suspicious transaction, and even their private conversations. Just then, Sarah burst into the command center, incredulity in her eyes. Oliver, you've got to see this. She quickly opened her laptop and pulled up an HD video. The footage shows Emma meeting with a bank manager in the restaurant of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. And through specialized lip recognition software, they are able to understand the conversation. Emma is discussing how to transfer more than $5 million to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Perfect timing, Oliver said, a sharp glint in his eye. To initiate Operation Flashed. It was the code name for the counterattack plan they'd been orchestrating for 2 weeks. First, they submitted a detailed report to the financial regulator through legal channels, including a complete chart of the flow of funds and transaction records. Meanwhile, Benjamin contacted his investigative reporter friends at the Chicago Tribune to begin an in-depth report on William's business empire. The results came faster than expected. The next morning, William's major investors received a detailed, 100-page investigative report exposing his systematic fraud scheme. The company's stock price plummeted 30% within an hour, and several key partners issued urgent statements announcing the termination of all collaborative projects. Emma's yoga studio is also in crisis like never before, and when members find out that their dues have been used for illegal activities, the front desk is overwhelmed by calls of angry complaints. Take a look at this real-time monitor. Trina pointed to a specific screen. William is urgently contacting the major banks in an attempt to move the funds, but it's too late. We have frozen his main accounts through the proper channels. Surveillance footage shows William hurriedly running from bank to bank, his elegant businessman image gone, replaced by a panicked fugitive. Emma's reaction was more intense than they expected. She tried to portray herself as a victim through social media and local television, tearfully claiming that she too was a victim of William's deception and exploitation. But Oliver had in her possession a key recording that clearly documented her unsolicited offer to William to expand money laundering 3 months earlier. "She's losing her mind," Sarah analyzed as she watched Emma's latest social media updates. In the last 48 hours, her postings have become more and more extreme in their wording, and full of the hallmarks of persecution delusions. Typical gatekeeper syndrome, the hyper-defensive reaction when a secret is about to be revealed. Emma's Instagram account was suddenly filled with emotional posts about the struggles of women in the workplace and the pain of being misunderstood by society, in an apparent effort to set the stage for a possible legal defense. William's carefully constructed business empire begins to show fatal cracks. Under pressure from the Securities and Exchange Commission, the company's chief accountant chose to cooperate with the investigation by providing numerous internal documents. The documents detail how they used membership fees from yoga studios to launder money across borders and how they systematically falsified business records. The data suggests that the true number of members may be as little as 30% of what is recorded on the books. "The operation is quite subtle," Trina said, studying the newly arrived documents intently. "They're not only using the membership fees for initial money laundering, but they're planning to make the entire chain store system into a massive money laundering network. With each new store, a new money laundering point is created." From a business standpoint, the plan was perfect if we hadn't discovered the pattern. William didn't sit around and wait. His legal team filed a countersuit accusing Oliver of unlawfully obtaining trade secrets and conducting unlawful surveillance. But that's just what Oliver wanted. At an emergency hearing in federal court, he presented a packet of evidence that not only proved the legality of all of his actions, but also accidentally revealed more violations of the law that William was involved in, including commercial espionage and bribery. "Honestly, I've never seen such a wonderful look on the judge's face," Benjamin described upon his return from court, especially when the prosecutor showed a professional comparative analysis of those forged documents. "Those so-called member signatures have been done better than that by even amateur forgers." The evidence showed that William and Emma had systematically falsified thousands of documents over the past 2 years, from membership contracts to financial statements, and that virtually every one of them had been altered. Emma's hard-earned yoga studio empire is crumbling at an alarming rate. High-end members have demanded full refunds of their dues, and employees resigned en masse after learning the truth. A former front desk manager chose to come forward and provide detailed testimony to police. "Emma asked us to regularly falsify attendance records and lesson logs," the manager said, "and there were some so-called diamond members that we never actually met. There was a lot of cash coming in every month, but it never went through the normal accounting process." William's reaction is getting out of hand. Surveillance showed him frantically destroying documents in his office for 3 consecutive nights, even going so far as to burn the entire filing cabinet. "He totally panicked," Trina said as she observed the real-time footage, "and it looks like we really hit the nail on the head." Just then, their information surveillance system intercepts an important piece of information. William is secretly arranging for a private jet to leave the country. "Don't worry," Benjamin said calmly. "I've notified the airport authority and the border patrol. All his passports are marked." Sure enough, late that night, William was stopped while trying to board a private jet. $200,000 in cash and 3 fake passports from different countries were found in his carry-on luggage. Emma's meltdown came more dramatically. During a heated family argument, she completely lost her mind. "You think you're so smart, don't you, Oliver?" she cried hysterically. "You have no idea what we've planned. This is just the beginning." These words were recorded in full by a high-definition recording device installed in the room. "This recording is so critical," Trina said as she played back the recording, "that she inadvertently admits that the entire criminal scheme was premeditated." Sarah then added from a professional perspective, "From a psychological analysis, this is a typical concentrated outbreak of guilt." She could no longer maintain the image of the elegant and sensual yoga instructor. As the investigation deepens, more shocking truths emerge. It turns out William was not only running a financial scam, but he was also using the yoga studio's network of high-end contacts to engage in commercial espionage. They used the identities of corporate executives among their members to collect trade secrets and insider information and sell them at high prices on the international black market. Emma, on the other hand, utilizes her gentle and gracious image as a yoga instructor to successfully penetrate the upper-class circles and become the key manager of this intelligence network. Needless to say, they really have built a near-perfect scam, Trina concluded, capitalizing on people's quest for healthy lifestyles and trust in professionals to create a vast network of fraud and espionage. But now, this carefully constructed scam is falling apart at an alarming rate. William and Emma are not only facing the collapse of their business empire, but also serious criminal charges. As the investigation deepens, events unfold far beyond Oliver's expectations. On a cold Tuesday morning, an FBI task force surrounded Williams' corporate headquarters. Wearing body armor and armed, the agents expertly and quickly controlled every exit of the building. William is trying to destroy the last of the documents in his office on the 28th floor, and the shredder is still roaring when the agents break in. The FBI. Freeze. The agent's shouts echoed through the plush office. William's face instantly turned pale as he mechanically raised his hands, his carefully tailored suit already wrinkled beyond recognition. Trina recorded the entire process on a high-powered camera mounted across the street from the building. "It looks like our tip worked," she told Oliver. And the accountant who cooperated with the investigation provided information that made it impossible for the FBI to continue to sit on the sidelines. On the screen, images of William being escorted out of the office in handcuffs play over and over again. Meanwhile, another law enforcement team arrives at Emma's yoga studio. Local police and federal agents burst in halfway through the morning exercise session. Emma was instructing a group of wealthy members in warrior pose when she saw the police. Her mat slipped to the side and her grace disappeared. Ms. Emma Morgan, a female agent, stepped forward. "You're under arrest on suspicion of business fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent, and anything you say will be used against you in a court of law." The yoga studio was in an uproar as members pulled out their cell phones to capture the dramatic scene. Sarah watched her sister's reaction through the studio's surveillance system. Her body language changed completely. Sarah expertly analyzed, from confidence to fear in less than 3 seconds. It's a classic sign of collapsing psychological defenses. Benjamin has more news. The prosecution has more evidence than we thought. In addition to financial crimes, they found William and Emma involved in multiple cases of commercial espionage. Many of those high-end members are executives of important companies. They used the privacy of yoga classes to collect trade secrets. Evidence began to pile up in federal court. Materials presented by prosecutors show that the size of this criminal network is far greater than imagined. William and Emma not only established a criminal network in Chicago, but also extended their reach into New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. Each new yoga studio is a well-disguised intelligence gathering site and money laundering center. The pretrial hearing was held in federal court. The courtroom was packed and media reporters filled the gallery. William's legal team tried to secure bail for him, but the evidence presented by prosecutors led the judge to reject the request out of hand. "The defendant has at his disposal a great deal of overseas resources," the prosecutor stated, "and in the materials we seized, we found that he had prepared escape routes in at least 5 countries. Just 24 hours before his arrest, he tried to flee on a private jet to a country without an extradition treaty." Emma is in even worse shape. The entire courtroom is silent when the prosecution plays the recording of her and William plotting to kill Oliver. On the recording, she calmly discusses how to make the murder look like an accident. "Make sure it won't be traced back to us." Her voice carried clearly through the courtroom. "Oliver's too cunning for us to leave anything to chance." Chillingly, Trina whispered from the gallery. She said those words as calmly as if she were discussing a dinner menu. William's confession turned the tide of the case. After seeing the overwhelming evidence available to the prosecution, he opted for a plea bargain, agreeing to fully cooperate with the investigation in exchange for leniency. He gave a detailed account of how the entire criminal network operated, including how the yoga studio was used for money laundering, how trade secrets were collected and sold, and every detail of the murder plan. "This was an elaborate scam," Williams said in his plea statement. "We took advantage of people's quest for healthy living and their trust in professionals to create a vast network of fraud." Emma was not only complicit, she was the main architect of the program. Her background in psychology allows her to pinpoint the psychology of her members so that they share confidential information unsuspectingly. Confronted with Williams' confession, Emma finally breaks down. In court, she shouted hysterically, "You traitor! We agreed to work together." The bailiffs had to force her out of the courtroom. Sarah watched the scene with mixed emotions in her eyes. "Never seen her like this before," Sarah said. All the masks shattered to reveal her true colors. The verdict was announced soon after. William was sentenced to 25 years in prison on multiple counts of financial fraud, commercial espionage, and solicitation of murder. Considering his cooperative attitude, the judge agreed that he should serve his sentence in federal prison. Emma, on the other hand, was sentenced to 20 years for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and attempted murder. The judge made a point of mentioning the severity of the betrayal at sentencing, Benjamin said. He felt that Emma had betrayed not only the marriage, but all the people who had trusted her. Those members who look up to her as a life coach turn out to be used by her as a tool for profit. The fallout from the case continues to fester. The media dug up more details about William and Emma's criminal network that implicated them in a number of unsolved business cases. Their assets were frozen across the board, including those accounts hidden overseas. Emma's carefully crafted yoga empire went up in smoke overnight, and members have filed civil lawsuits for damages. "This is their true nature," Trina said as she sorted through the case materials, hiding the darkest of desires underneath the shiny exterior. Oliver stood in the empty yoga studio, the walls once filled with members' lockers now bare. The floor still has the spot where Emma used to stand when she taught her classes. He remembered her words when she came home for the last time. "You'll never understand why I did what I did." Maybe she was right. He could never understand how one person could betray all those who trusted her. But as an ex-criminal police officer, he knows full well that any crime eventually has to be paid for. Emma and William's carefully woven web of lies ends up being a cage that binds them to themselves. "Case closed," Benjamin patted him on the shoulder. "You did the right thing." Oliver looks out the window at the sunset and remembers that this nightmarish experience is coming to a close. But he knew that this story would become a textbook for the law enforcement community, a warning that even the closest of people sometimes wear the most perfect masks and hide the darkest secrets. 10 years later, Oliver Morgan stood in a conference room on the top floor of a downtown Chicago skyscraper on an early fall morning, looking out over the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. The Morgan Security Consulting logo glows in the sunlight, a business spawned by a personal tragedy that has grown to become the world's top security consulting organization. How are the preparations for today's security summit going? Trina Martinez walked in, holding the latest agenda for the meeting. 10 years later, she remains Oliver's most trusted partner and now serves as the firm's COO. All invited guests have confirmed their attendance, including 3 multinational CEOs and 2 former directors of the FBI. Oliver nodded, his eyes sweeping over the information laid out on the conference table. Today's topic is preventive security, from individuals to businesses. This very concept was born out of his personal experience 10 years ago and has now become the gold standard in the industry. Sarah's new book will also be premiered at the conference, Trina added. Sarah has become a leading expert in the field of business psychology over the years, and her new book, The Psychology of Betrayal, Preventing and Recognizing Business Fraud, has received high academic praise. As he was talking, Benjamin Lucas pushed his way in. As the company's director of security technology, he led the team that developed several revolutionary protection systems. "Oliver, you've got to see this," he said as he opened his tablet. "Our AI alert system was tested very successfully in the Miami branch, identifying 3 potential business scams in advance." That's when Oliver's wife, Catherine Wilson, pushed her way in. The well-known corporate counsel, now legal director of Morgan Security, is also a witness to Oliver's new life. They met at a corporate security seminar, and Catherine's sharp mind and integrity immediately appealed to Oliver. Good morning, everyone, Catherine said with a smile. Rachel and James are still getting ready for today's presentation. Said twin children, now Ivy League students, are passionate about their father's career. The big screen in the conference room switched to a news screen. A recap of an old case from a decade ago is playing. The news that William Anderson has been granted parole after serving 8 years. The footage shows that he has completely changed. The once spirited business elite is now just a prematurely aged middle-aged man doing low-key clerical work at a community service center. I heard he wrote a book in prison, Sarah said, about how he fell from a successful businessman to a criminal. Many business schools use it as a counterpoint to business ethics. Emma's situation is even more saddening. With 10 years left on her sentence, she teaches yoga in a women's prison, and ironically, this time she's genuinely trying to help people. Wardens reported that she often cried alone late at night, regretting past choices. Life is ironic, Trina commented. She's now really a yoga instructor who helps others, only from behind bars. Morgan Security's success is due in large part to their unique prevention philosophy. Oliver has translated his experience into a complete risk assessment system that focuses not only on the technical aspects of security, but also on human weaknesses and psychological precautions. Last year, we prevented fraud cases totaling more than $1 billion, Benjamin reports. And what I'm most proud of is that we helped a lot of people like you back then and saved them from experiencing the pain of that betrayal. Sarah added, our psychological assessment system is now used by over 200 large organizations worldwide. By observing subtle behavioral changes, we can detect potential threats early. Catherine pulled out one of the latest contracts. Interpol wants to bring in our early warning system, which they think will be helpful in fighting transnational financial crime. The company's success is reflected not only in business, but also in social impact. Oliver and Catherine have established the Trust Rebuilders Foundation, which specializes in helping victims of business crime and funding related preventative research. The latest research project funded by the foundation has had a breakthrough, says Catherine, in that they have developed a suite of AI models for recognizing the early signs of commercial fraud. At lunchtime, Oliver stands in his office, where photos of chapters around the globe hang on the wall. In addition to its Chicago headquarters, the company now has operations centers in London, Singapore, and Dubai. Each center is guided by the same philosophy. Prevention is better than remedy. The latest polls show that we are the most trusted security consulting firm in the world, Trina walked in and said, and we have been #1 in the industry for 5 consecutive years in terms of client satisfaction. At that point, a video call was accessed. It's Rachel and James at college, and they're preparing a presentation on modern business security. Dad, we'd like to ask you to share your experience from that year, Rachel said. The students are very interested in this case. Oliver looks at the vibrant faces of the children and remembers the dark days of 10 years ago. It was that experience that taught him the true meaning of safety and trust. Tell them, he said, that it is not the obvious threats that are the most dangerous, but the betrayals that are cloaked in trust. The evening security summit brought together security experts from around the world. When Oliver took the stage, the entire room was silent. 10 years ago, I experienced a betrayal of a lifetime, he says, getting right to the point. But it was this experience that taught me that true security is not just about technology and systems, but about a deep understanding of human nature. The venue's big screen showed the company's success stories. From internal fraud prevention for multinational corporations to personal security for high-net-worth individuals, Morgan Security has always been at the forefront of the industry. Not only are we protecting our customers' property and safety, Oliver continues, but more importantly, we are protecting them from the pain of having their trust broken. It's a calling, not just a job. After the speech, Catherine walked up and hugged him. This man who has weathered the storm has now found a new direction and happiness in his life. And that painful past was transformed into a power to benefit others. As night falls, Oliver stands at his office window, watching the city lights. It was the same way he'd stood at the window that desperate night 10 years ago, watching Emma on the phone in the backyard. But now, those painful memories have been transformed into a force that has helped him build a career protecting others. Ready to go home? Catherine asked gently. Oliver smiled and nodded. Yes, it was time to go home. This time, he finally found a truly trustworthy home. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.